Hello and welcome to the Axcess Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Vinny Masana. We are filming live again tonight from the Greene Turtle in Smithtown, New York. Joined with a special guest, Kyle Martin. Kyle's a product of Oceanside High School, graduated in 2016. Went on to play his college ball at Fordham and was just drafted by the Baltimore Orioles. This past year, just finished up his first year. First, we got a message from our sponsor. Today's podcast brought to you by the Long Island Tutoring and Enrichment, helping students attain their dream schools and earn scholarships through one-on-one tutoring. Students who work with LITE's elite staff of certified teachers see an average of 400-point increase on the SAT and 10-point increase on the ACT. They specialize in helping student athletes reach their target scores for athletic and academic scholarships. Family-owned and centrally located in Plainview. Call 877-609-PREP or visit litutoringandenrichment.com. All right, Kyle, so first let's talk about your most recent experience in the minor leagues. You know, you get drafted out of Fordham, everybody's dream to continue their career. So can you just talk about the process of, going into the draft and then ultimately your experience this year?
So going into the draft, it was obviously a very nerve-wracking time. I didn't really know exactly what was going to go on until I didn't really get a really good idea until about a week before. That's when I started hearing from a lot more teams. But going into spring, I knew I had a good chance, and I knew I just had to stay focused, keep playing out how I always play, keep pitching how I always pitch, and I knew everything would work out in the end.
Mm-hmm. And now, Orioles had the first overall pick in the draft, took Adley Rutschman, by most accounts considered the top catching prospect already in the minor league. So have you had an opportunity to interact with him or pitch to him?
Yeah, he was actually, for my team this summer, they had a rotation, of three catchers, and so I got to. It was one catcher would catch, then the next catcher, the next one, just like a rotation, kind of like a pitching rotation. And he actually was on my throwing day. I think 2 or 3 times I got to throw to him. We had threw a combined no-hitter. I got to close that out. He was the catcher, so that was pretty sweet. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he's legit. He's going to be in the big leagues really soon, and he's a good dude. Mm-hmm. He's humble. He's good.
Now, what stands out, you've been playing baseball all your life, what stands out from, a typical baseball player and somebody that's the number one overall pick in the country?
I'll be honest, he was, you didn't really think he was the number one. He interacted with all the guys. He didn't make it seem like he was the number one pick. He was, always in the locker room. He'd hang out with everybody.
Very humble.
He's humble, dude. He'd talk about, how he played. He was tell us a story about how he played football at Oregon State. He got I think he tackled Christian McCaffrey or something.
Oh, really?
Or Christian McCaffrey gave him a handshake or something during one. It was cool. He was down to earth. He talked about his personal life. He's a good dude overall.
Mm-hmm. And now you mentioned before we started filming that during one of Noah Syndergaard's rehab assignments that you had the opportunity to pitch against him. So what stood out from that day?
So that was actually my first outing in pro ball was when Syndergaard came. We were playing the Brooklyn Cyclones at home, and we found out the morning of the game that Syndergaard was going to be making the rehab start for the Cyclones. And I knew I was probably going to pitch that night, so I was already kind of had the butterflies, amped up. And then when I saw him at the stadium, I was like, "This is awesome." I grew up a Mets fan, so. Mm-hmm. And then when I got to pitch, I came to the game around the 6th inning, I think, and he was pitching. It was a sweet experience. It was really cool.
Mm-hmm. So now that you're back on Long Island here, what are you focused on in this offseason? It's your first one, coming back home after being in the minor leagues. Do you feel like you have something to prove?
Yeah, definitely. I think, honestly, my goal is just the same as it's always been, just get better every single day. Don't worry about what happened in the past. Just so you got to have a short-term memory. Even if it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. Got to keep moving on. Just try to climb up the ladder as quick as you can. Keep working.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've always been a hard thrower and good breaking ball. Since you're in as a reliever, are you going to try to continue to stay with that pitch repertoire? Or you want to add a third pitch?
I've actually been working on my changeup a lot because I usually have some trouble against lefties more than righties. So in catch play, I throw a lot of changeups, just having catch, just to get used to the feel of it coming out of my fingers. And I'm definitely working on a third pitch. In there.
And growing up, who were some athletes that you tried to emulate?
Well, since like I mentioned before, I was a big Mets fan, and I loved watching Tom Seaver pitch.
I think that was a little before your time.
I know. I love like old fashioned baseball like that. I think it's awesome. Tom Seaver, yes, really the first one that comes to mind. Doc Gooden, all those guys, they're legit.
And now going back in time a little bit, Oceanside High School. Now, first time I watched you pitch was at Burns Park. It's about 30 degrees, stands are packed, and you strike out 16 Massapequa Chiefs. What do you remember about that day?
I remember. I think was it my senior year? I think it was my senior year. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was awesome. I remember like the entire like fan section, just like I don't remember what they were screaming, but I remember them just screaming something. I think they mentioned something about my mom. Like they were just trying to get in my head, and it was awesome. I think it was probably one. I think it was maybe my favorite one of my favorite, definitely top 3 at least high school games ever. It was sweet. And after the game, I actually had to go over to the Massapequa dugout, I remember, to get ice for my arm because my arm was hanging. And all the kids, like, in the dugout, they came over and shook my hand. It was pretty cool. They're like, yo, we'd love to compete against you, all this stuff. A lot of them DM me on Instagram. One of them I actually still keep in contact with, like, every once in a while. Congratulated me for the draft and stuff. So it's, even though it was, like, very competitive, in the end, we're all still, like, we're also from the same area, so we all gotta like stick together. You know what I mean? We're all friends. So. You're
one of the few Oceanside guys that really have been able to conquer Massapequa. But what could you say about that rivalry in general?
I think it's still. I saw they had a big football game against them the other day. I saw there was like a big pass from Oceanside's QB. Had a game-winning touchdown with like 2 seconds left. I guess the rivalry is still pretty good. But when I was in high school, it was awesome. It was like whenever we played Massapequa, everything got shut down in the town, and it was a really cool experience. It was definitely great to grow up with a rivalry like that.
Now, how about your experience with the college recruiting process? You know, you wind up at Fordham, but I'm sure with the career that you had, that it was a pretty tough decision.
Yeah, it definitely was. I was stuck between two. I was stuck between. 2 or 3 schools. I didn't even know what to really pick, and I kind of just went with my gut, and that's really what brought me to Fordham.
Now, did you know that you guys had a special team? Obviously, winning the Atlantic 10 championship this year, you guys reached all your goals, but that wasn't, the case there the first couple of years that you were there. So, was it something that you knew that there was something brewing? Yeah,
I knew when we got my recruiting class was awesome at Fordham. There were a few Long Island guys there in my class also too, but we knew our freshman class when I got there freshman year we had a legit all around good class. Our first year wasn't really that well. Second year we got better. Third year we knew like we were kind of like the head of we were the juniors. We were like kind of like the mainstay. Everybody was in my class was playing, and we knew we had the talent. We're very very confident, and it just all worked out.
And now you guys started the season, of course, like everybody else in the Northeast, going down south, and you come back, and it's like 30, 40 degrees for the next month. So is that something that you've just grown accustomed to? Do you look forward to that? Do you see like that you have the advantage as a pitcher in the cold?
I think that kind of like honestly has given me an advantage growing up around here because like a lot of kids like from down south or Midwest, whatever, they've never really experienced cold like that. So like whenever like you have to experience it, I feel like I'm always used to it. And in college ball, when we come back up, we came from Texas A&M last spring, came back up, we're playing Maryland Eastern Shore in Maryland, and it was like 40 and misty out, like it was terrible. But like we were all ready, we swept them. Like I actually think we lost 1 out of 4, but we all played really well. And honestly, I think it's just like that mentality, like the grittiness is like that's always sticks with you when you're from the Northeast.
Now, you mentioned Texas A&M. I had the chance to go down there a couple years ago, and you see what they're all about. But what was your biggest takeaways from the Aggies? What do they call them? The 12th man?
Yeah, 12th man. They were just all together, like just like they're kind of like a unit, like all of them. Like they all like were fundamentally sound. They never struck out. And it was weird because we opened up against them at their place, and we were like, oh, this is a cool experience. I'm going to play them again. And then we won. When we won our conference, we got put in the Morgantown Regional WVU, and Texas A&M was the 2nd seed, and so we had to play them again in an elimination game, and they wound up eliminating us in the regional. But it was just weird how things came full circle.
Yeah,
like we opened up the year against them, did pretty well. We lost, I think, one game was like 3-1 and 4-1, and we were like, oh wow, never gonna see them again. But got to see them again.
Do you feel like after pitching in that competitive atmosphere that's just about as intense as it's going to get in a situation where you're not going to be nervous again?
It was actually really they have like that ball
ball
vibe, ball. And one of my best friends he got to like ball 9,
Oh,
and he was all over Barstool and all that stuff. And it was actually kind of funny. We still
but you learned from it, right?
Yeah, we still bust his chops about it. Mm-hmm. And I remember I threw 3 balls in a row. And they were like, oh, Kyle. They were like screaming my name. And I was like, oh, God, I threw one just right down the middle. And I was like, thank God I didn't forget. And then, yeah, it was definitely it was cool. Yeah, it does. It was an awesome experience altogether. It was really cool.
Mm-hmm. And before we let you go here, 2020 Fordham team, obviously they're losing you, but do you feel like they're in good hands? What can we expect?
Yeah, they're good. They're in good hands. They really they lost me and our setup guy, Anthony Zimmerman, last year. And other than that, they got most guys coming back. They got good pitching still. Mm-hmm. Good. They got good hitters. They're scrappy, and I think they're going to do a lot of damage.
And how about John Stankowitz? Had one of the lowest ERAs in the country last year.
Yeah, he's stanky beer. He's legit. He's good. He's starting to throw harder now too. He's on the radar. He's good. He's gonna have a good career. Awesome. He's got a good mix. He's really good.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kyle, thank you very much for your time. We're gonna let you go now. We have our next guest coming up, Coach Rick Garrett from St. Joseph's College. Best of luck in the 2020 season, Kyle. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, we are back with St. Joseph's head coach, Rick Garrett. Rick has won 2 Skyline championships with them over his tenure. He's entering his 7th season now. And before that, he was at St. Dom's. So let's just touch quickly on the 2019 season. I know you guys had a young team coming off of winning it the previous year. So what was your biggest takeaways? I know it wasn't the ending that you wanted, losing at Maritime in that wild game.
Yeah, it definitely was a wild game. Mm-hmm. Probably one of the wildest in my 30 years. Overall, the season, I thought we had a season of up and downs. We had some injuries, key injuries, that caused us to, I guess you would say, not have a set lineup. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of the things that we constantly battled through the whole year. The team really tried all the time. They played hard. Mm-hmm. The pitching staff kept us in games. We had 4 top pitchers that were returning in Woodford, Papa, Foreign, and Czech. Mm-hmm. So, you to bring back a staff like that. We did lose one of our key players in Campanelli behind the dish, but we got some great underclassmen that were stepping up, and they had a great fall. Mm-hmm. We return a solid infield of Biordi and Anthony Raucci, who's been our staple in the 3-hole, and Tyler Sanderson.
And big home run in that playoff game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, battled through all season long, and we will have some young guys in the outfield, but we also had a group of juniors that were waiting for their time. So the last group has graduated, and now it's their time to step up as seniors and go out there. Mm-hmm. We had a great recruiting class. Myself, Coach Bankert, Coach Caputo went out, and we had over 70 kids come out for tryouts in the fall.
70 kids,
yeah.
Wow.
We had a lot of walk-ons, and we put together, I believe, a very athletic team. Mm-hmm. Of 39 ball players, and I think they're all focused. They're doing really well in school. We're off to Tucson, Arizona this year, so that's the first time we're taking a trip west.
What fields?
We're going to be I believe it's the Tiger Stadiums.
Oh, nice.
So it's 8 fields, and we got 10 games in 5 days, so we're looking forward to that. And the kids have been working hard. They know that the way it ended wasn't the way we used to here for the last 6 years.
Yeah. Well, you touched on a lot of things there, but I'm going to, single out a couple things there. Let's start with the 10 games in 5 days. You've done that, the Dominican Republic, Florida. Is that something that you like to do to kind of establish who's, let the cream rise to the top, so to speak?
Yeah, and the weather in the Northeast is tough, so to be in someplace warm and to get those at-bats and really let the kids put, after winter workouts and conditioning that they do, and then we go inside, very little chance. I mean, we've been blessed the last 2 years with nice weather in the spring and playing on March 1st.
So that means we're due.
We're due. And every Farmer's Almanac, everybody's saying we're due this spring.
Yeah.
And we know how
ready.
right they are. But, so we're ready to go. And I think, we play top 15, top 20 teams all week long throughout our season, so that gets the younger guys a great experience. It's not like when they start in league games, they're coming in cold. They're playing actually talent, real talent.
Yeah.
And that's the way I built the program, that during the week, everybody gets the experience to play in those league games on the weekend. And I got a great coaching staff that, does a great job working with the guys while I handle everything else until the game prep.
Let's see. I was going to mention Caputo. Coach Tom Caputo has great coaching acumen. What has he brought to the program so far?
Similar in some ways of Coach Parse, who went on to great things at St. Anthony's. He's a hard, unbelievable hard worker. Detail, just a great person. To have another man like that on the staff around the kids, he has set up every program individually for them. He knows the game. Everybody knows Tom knows the game, and we're all on the same page that we're life coaches before we're baseball coaches. So the experience and the things that he brings from his success on the outside, there's no egos. We get along because we agree with the same philosophy. And same thing with Joe. Joe is a graduate of St. Joseph's, and to have that with our pitching staff.
Beat me twice at Farmingdale.
Okay. So to go into the coach's office and be on the same page, even where can you find three coaches having the same evaluations come down to make a decision on forming a team, and that we weren't off by one. So it's a great situation, Shantae Hill took over the program at St. Joseph's. She's the athletic director for both schools, as well as the vice president of student life, and it's just been great working with her. I mean, she's behind every sport, and we all support one another. So to have that feeling all the way through the school, it's a win-win for everything.
And now you mentioned you had 70 kids come out to tryouts. How have the numbers jumped in your time over the 7 years?
Well, I believe when I got there was 28 kids total on the team, and there were some really good ball players. They were young. It was that same group, and adding a few pieces within 2 years, won a championship and then went on to win the first regional game in history, beating John Hopkins. So that was a great turning point. And then from there, the recruitment, I don't want to say it was easier. We just know what we have. We play to our field. We got 408 in center. We got a turf infield. We got fastball players. We're looking for athletes, both athletes and students. So their focus is always on the game, and I don't make that a situation for them where they have to worry about or think about. They just know, do what's in the classroom, no surprises, and everything turns out right on the field. And I really believe it's worked. Our seniors have averaged like 77,000 graduating in 44, in 4 years rather. And I think that's attributed to the academics and balance of baseball.
Now, we spoke before about that 2016 teams, the 2016 team, how it came together. You brought in a young group of guys, and by the time they were seniors, they were ready to lead. Those group of guys, do they still come back to the program? What have they meant to the teams now? With that group, I'm on my fourth wedding, which has been awesome. One of my players, who then became my assistant coach when he graduated from that year, just was at his wedding, and that was Jake Brown. And then Joe Lynn got married, and it's been amazing. It really is, and to see them all at this point in their life, and we still get together socially to see one another. Each year, my wife is amazing. She cooks this big Christmas dinner for every alum as well as the whole team. So we have about 80 kids come to our house for Christmas, and the way they come in is they bring a toy, and we turn that over to the Toys for Tots, and she makes over 300 meatballs, and everybody shows. It's a night that you look forward to every year, because now they can get to bring their wives my first year. And soon, hopefully, their kids. You lure them in with meatballs, they will.
Yes, feed them and they will come in baseball.
Yes. And another thing, the 2018 team, it's amazing the parallels with 2016. Both at Farmingdale, both in the 11th inning. Is that something that you guys ever joke about?
Yeah. In high school when I coached, it was like, oh my God, I can't get over the Farmingdale curse. We go play out there and we lose. I got pictures on my phone of my son walking in the outfield and throwing the second place trophy and saying, Dad, are you ever going to win here? and now to come there and win at their place both times. And it's just a beautiful stadium to play at, but it just is, I don't know what it is. Ever seems we get knocked out right away at home.
Yeah.
We go there and we win.
Well, I wasn't going to mention that part.
Yeah, well, it happens. We're looking to break that curse. So.
Yeah. And how about how the Skyline Conference has improved? It seems like every single year a little bit more parity. When I played, it was typically between Farmingdale, St. Joe's, Old Westbury, now Maritime, USMMA has been so good, and now Manhattanville in 2020,
Yes.
right?
I mean, I first coached in the Skyline back in 1997-98. I was the pitching coach at Old Westbury with John Leonardo and Hector Ariste. And back then, it was that battle group that you talked about. And it was a different, I want to say it was a different league. There was a lot of back and forth and everything else. And since I've been in it now, starting my 7th year, I coach against great coaches, great people. It's nice to get to know them as a head coach, where you can go out and talk about games and talk about different things. And, with Keith and Rod and Charlie. There's a really Bloom over at St. Joe's, Brooklyn, great guy. I mean, all of us have this connection together. We all want the same players, but at least we have that camaraderie when we're at showcases and everything else. And it's really been a step up. I heard about how Manhattanville was a great program and how coming into the league, that's going to be another battle. So, I'm glad we're playing more games. But it's just good to go out every week and know we're not just going into a league. We're in a very competitive league. Skyline had a different appeal to it. Now it's
you got to show
solid.
up. Yep. And now going back to your previous coaching experience at St. Dom's, you led them in 2009. It's still the only Catholic League championship for them. So can you just give our audience a little insight on how that team was put together and that experience of being, their first?
I think it started the same way. Back in I arrived there in 96, 97 school year for baseball. And there was a group of young men that were there, 11 to be exact, and we added a few more players that, played baseball. And when we built the foundation that year of what the program was going to be about, community service, good grades, and they were all great grades at St. Dominic's. It's a great school. I've been working there now, 23 years, or being a part of it for 23 years. And those kids, you had the MVP of the league came out of that year, which was Dennis Tranquina, who went on to play at Manhattan. Jimmy Moran was drafted, also one of the Fab Five in basketball in the country, went to William & Mary. Mike Basel went on to play at Notre Dame. Mike Perullo was a star at Belmont Abbey and then came home to Hofstra for 1 year. So you took 5 ball players and everybody else raised the level, and it was the foundation. And then we had a great freshman group come in, and they had to play varsity for 4 years, but they suffered their lumps.
Right? Yep.
And then when they became juniors, we went on a winning spree and being in a championship, I think, for 7 or 8 years in a row. And it just kept on feeding. And we're a small school. Total population for the boys is like 250.
Wow.
So, having 11 players that were, 7 of them, I believe, drafted from the school, with Kyle Young being the last one. And Kyle came in as a freshman. When I was the head varsity coach there, I just spoke to Kyle this morning, and he's doing well with his rehab. And to have that relationship and still see all of them now, those.
By
kids
the way, I was
babies.
looking at his numbers the other day: 2.9 ERA in the minor leagues, 14 wins already, and he's only 21 years old.
Right. I went to see Kyle. I got invited to go see him pitch against the Staten Island Yankees, and the stands were full with old St. Dominic's parents and players and everything like that. And we're rooting for the Phillies, and we're Yankee Stadium, and we outnumbered them, I think, like 4-1, and he's pitching a no-hitter, and then they just pull him because his reached his pitch count, and he was beaming, and he got to go on the bus ride home because we took a big chartered bus, and those are relationships like you just know will last a lifetime, and friendships. I mean, I consider most of the players as friends, and they've been around my son, my family, so it's a program. And I think that's the best part of it.
And now it's been 10 years. Did they do anything for the group?
We were trying to do it last year. One of our key players was over in Afghanistan. So it was trying to maneuver his schedule. Brandon, yeah. So Brandon is back. Actually, he moved to Florida. He's a police officer down in Orlando. And me and his mom work together. And me and his dad are best of friends, and so Brandon, we're hoping to do it this year, and bring everybody back. Kyle Hansen and all that group, John Yo, and
wouldn't feel right without them. Right?
Yeah, it wouldn't feel right. So we decided that it might be a little delay, but it's about bringing everybody back together, especially with his service, and thanking him for what he's done. Over there, which has been a tough couple of tours for him.
And one more thing on that, we just did the top teams of the decade.
Yes.
So you were as close to the Catholic League as you can be. You were there for a long time. You got to see all these good teams. Can you give our audience a quick glimpse of what it was like around, that 2009 to 2012 period?
Yeah, it just seemed like every time we turned around, the young men or the boys at that time, they were all Division I, Division II, 3 players, but everybody had a whole team full of them. And that group was actually 5 of those seniors in that year when we lost the Chaminade. They all played as sophomores and won the championship as sophomores. So it was amazing. We had a sophomore behind the dish. We had a sophomore in right and center, and I believe at second base, and 1 relief pitcher. So they had that experience, and then I just remember when they were all having their great college careers. Hanson is pitching at St. John's, and he's on ESPN. And the next game they turn to is Manhattan playing, and there's Nick Girardi closing out a game at, and I never pitched Nick in high school, closing out a game at 93, 96 miles an hour.
Yep.
And everybody's texting me saying, moron, should have pitched him. And then followed up with Stephen Goldstein hitting the home run and making unbelievable plays as a freshman at Stony Brook. I was like, as a coach.
All from a small school.
All from a small school.
Yeah.
We had T.J. Thomas went to San Diego State, and Joe Van Meter went to Arizona State, and all these kids got to go to great schools. Phil Persino to St. Joe's in Philly, and these kids that got drafted out of high school. So, and see Joe Van Meter pitching now against the Ducks for the championship and stuff.
Yeah.
And the call, coach, come on down. I'm pitching. That's what you do this for. Yeah. Wins come. But players will always be there to stay with you whether you win or lose. And I think that's the important part.
Very cool. So just lastly, just touching on the 2020 season again, what phase are you guys at now in terms of your preparation, and how excited are you to get going?
We finished up the fall. We were playing really well. Very aggressive. The kids came in. I thought they just came in ready to go. And it was great for that. And then the leadership. I've always had great leaders, but the group of them this year made sure that everything was up to speed before I even saw them on the field, which was amazing, because I was like, all right, well, I'm talking to Tom, and we're going back and forth, and Joe, and they were already into the same routine we've been doing for 6 years. And I was like, how did they pick up on that? But the captains were great. The rest of the team was great, and everybody was up to speed. We had a great game against Larry Minor's national team to see how people could play in the positions. And Larry's another great guy on Long Island baseball. And then from there we did, we got down to the number we wanted. We got a couple of players that are hurt. One of the players that transferred in, Dylan Clausen, is doing really well, and he's rehabbing right now.
Lefty pitcher, right?
Lefty pitcher, and I'm hoping, Dylan will be a major part of the rotation. And then a couple of little nicks here and there, and our trainer, Lisa, is just doing a great job putting that all together, through the rehab right now. And then they're lifting and doing what they're supposed to do, and so far not one bad report card or grade. And we start now preparing for Arizona. We have some fundraisers coming up. We do. Like I said, the AD Shantae, she runs it as if it's a Division I school. Covers everything, with the gear, everything else that's prepped for them. The trips, usually the kids don't pay a dime. And like I said, it's like $80,000 to go to DR. This one's going to be $60 there, and it's covered by the fundraising that we do. So I'm very proud of them. They work hard, and they work hard as a team. I know where they are at all times. So.
Awesome. Well, Coach, thank you very much for your time. Great catching up with you, and best of luck in the 2020 season.
Thank you, and thank you for doing this. It's great to read about all the great players from you.
My pleasure. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Axcess Baseball Podcast.